people want to get to 70, 80 years old. Everyone's talking about longevity. It's like, but you want to actually be doing well when you get there. You don't want to spend the last 20 years of your life, not being able to clean up after yourself. You want to actually be sharp and present and functional.
So I know you're a big proponent of melatonin. So tell me how you use it in your population of men, Dave, that you're consulting with.
Well, melatonin's just so damn good for you. That's why it's not front page news, right? There's no money to be made in it.
That's right.
So melatonin is wonderful. As you said, melatonin is the body's chief antioxidant. And I, for the last 6 months, have been going on a deep dive down. Is it Dr. Russell Reiter? Is that his surname?
Yeah.
There's also a guy, Dr. John Lawrence. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong.
Yeah,
but
he wrote the
melatonin
molecule.
Miracle. Yeah. So I've watched all the content. I have gotten myself recently up to 120 milligrams of melatonin, and I titrated up quite gradually. Well, not that gradually. I titrated up very gradually to about 20, and then I moved up in greater increments from there. And I think there are a lot of misconceptions around melatonin, particularly the idea that you only want to take it in minimal amounts occasionally if you're changing time zone or whatever. That was on this idea that melatonin has some kind of negative feedback loop like testosterone does. That was debunked a decade ago thoroughly. It's just that a lot of the people on the internet who speak very loudly about things, who are often selling other sleep supplements, by the way, are saying you want to avoid melatonin for all these reasons, but you also want to take a whole bunch of other antioxidant supplements to do the same thing that melatonin does.
Right.
It's ridiculous. So melatonin is fantastic, and I have found it to be particularly fantastic for people who have, well, basically, the more stress the body is under, the more you can benefit from taking melatonin, because melatonin is going to support the body being under stress. The thing that I have particularly found melatonin to shine for is intractable chronic inflammatory conditions like autoimmune conditions. Particularly endometriosis in women. I don't really work with women, but the other thing that I found it really useful for is people with spinal issues or physical pain that prevents them from getting comfortable at night and sleeping properly. 2 birds, 1 stone. So melatonin is a profound antioxidant, and a lot of the things that people are looking for antioxidant benefits for, melatonin is wonderful for. We have incredibly high levels when we're children, and that's why children tend to be more protected against these diseases of aging that we see in older populations. But the other thing that we also have to consider is that when they're looking at studies and saying to take 3 to 5 milligrams of melatonin because that restores natural production of older people who are living in a world that's artificially lit 24/7. That's not optimal melatonin levels. So I think that you should take as much, I think every single person should take as much melatonin as they can tolerate. I think a lot of people, there's a couple of theories as to why some people get that groggy morning after effect. One is that they metabolize it slowly and should take it before dinner. The other is they may be having a sort of detox reaction. I think both of those are viable, but I think the best way to do it is just titrate up gradually over time. Make sure you get morning sun, which you should be doing anyway. And I have only found more benefits have come from taking more melatonin. I do have 2 spinal injuries, which may be why I get so much benefit from it. But every time I take more melatonin, my wife notices that my skin looks better. My wife notices that I physically look better. So melatonin is wonderful. I highly recommend. Like when people say, "Oh, I sleep well, so I don't need to take melatonin."
There you go.
No. Melatonin we're looking at it like Pregnenolone and DHEA. We're looking at it as an antioxidant, protective, health promoting, health restoring agent. It's particularly useful if you're sick. And you want to, even if you sleep great, you could still benefit from taking melatonin. And you want to take as much melatonin as you can tolerate. And you want to take a micronized pharmaceutical grade version of it so that it gradually gets released in the gut, so you don't get a big spike that's just going to throw your body's rhythm out. And as you know, melatonin, wonderful.
Yes, you're dead on, Dave. So people understand that, look, the typical dose, as David pointed out, for sleep is typically a low dose that's recommended. But if you start looking at the medical literature, look at some of the meta-analysis that have been done, the anti-cancer effects come in around 20 to 40 milligrams per night. So it's a much higher dose. And there's no harm in taking more than that. Once again, people will spend an extraordinary amount of money for antioxidants and all these foods and drinks and supplements. None of them hold a candle to melatonin. None of them. Remember, hormones are bullets, supplements are BBs. It's just the way that it is. So yes, as you know, I'm a huge proponent of melatonin. And now look, when you read the book by John, look, we're not going to take it rectally, okay? We're going to take it orally like the studies do, okay? So you can't vet every book, and there's some good things in there, but sometimes there's these books, and you have to say, no, where did that really come from? So no, let's don't take melatonin rectally, people. If you read the Miracle Molecule by John, is let's take it orally like they do in the studies. So
Hmm.
that's an important fact to point out. All right.
Hmm.
So, you've mentioned, of course, pregnenolone. Now, I'll use it in older men, and it's, to improve memory and help with neuronal repair. And of course, you use it as you state in these younger men that have had brain injuries. So, tell us your feelings on pregnenolone itself. It's to me, if people are like, I don't want to take any hormones. I don't want to take any hormones. I just want to do my testosterone, or I just, I don't have financial. I'm not financially able to do them all. And I said, which ones can I cut out first? I will typically say, well, if you're going to cut out any hormone and not take it at all, I guess it would be pregnenolone on my list. But I'd recommend that you take them all because we've already talked about it working synergistically with all your other hormones. But if Dave and I had to really throw it out there, the data in humans and randomized control trials is somewhat limited in pregnenolone compared to the others. Although there's plenty of studies out there, which I have, it's just not as robust as our
Mm.
other studies, but I do use it to improve memory and help with neuronal repair. How about you?
Yeah. Completely. And it's kind of like when people ask that question of like, oh, if you could only do 10 exercises for the rest of your life, what would they be? And I'd say, well, why can I only do 10? If they say, oh, if I could only take 3 hormones, what would it be? It's like, why can't you take 5? Like they're
Exactly.
not, it's not, and especially like, I don't know about you, but I get them, I get like a morning capsule and a night capsule. So I compound them together so that way, we can do whatever we can to make it easier and more economical for people. But yeah, I mean, I guess if I had an older gentleman who was like, what's one hormone I could cut out if for some reason I couldn't, I mean, yeah, I'd probably pregnenolone if I had to, but
Right.
I wouldn't. But yeah, so when it comes to pregnenolone exerts a lot of its effects in the body via conversion to progesterone and allopregnenolone, and these are where it has its calming effect. So it's what's called a GABA A receptor positive allosteric modulator, which is a fancy term for making the GABA A receptor more sensitive, which is the same mechanism of action as benzodiazepines, Valium, Xanax, etc. So when someone is deficient in pregnenolone, what pregnenolone also does in the brain is it is very neuroprotective.
Mhm.
So anytime someone takes anything that's intoxicating, whether it's caffeine or amphetamine or alcohol or whatever it is, the brain increases pregnenolone release to basically prevent your brain from getting too overexcited and going into an oxidative stress state. So it's like a thermostat.
Mhm.
And it seems to have, as well as DHEA, have a lot of these thermostat properties throughout the body. It works on the endocannabinoid system. So a lot of these benefits that we see from cannabis are happening on the CB1 and CB2 receptors, which pregnenolone also binds with. It's technically a
Right.
cannabinoid. So it's got like your own endogenous version of CBD
Right.
almost as
And
well.
that's why you see it being used in all of these substance abuse disorders in the studies.
Hmm.
Absolutely, Dave.
Hmm.
Dead on.
And I often find that people who are pregnenolone deficient will self-medicate with CBD because it works on a lot of the same pathways. So pregnenolone is very much, I like to call it the brakes. I do find that when people are deficient in pregnenolone, when you combine pregnenolone and melatonin, they sleep like a baby.
Mhm.
It seems to massively reduce the baseline level of stress in the body, and sometimes this stress can be perceived mentally as anxiety. If you're constantly mentally feeling like there's something wrong, maybe there is, and maybe it's inside, and maybe you're reacting to that. It's like a crying baby.
Right.
It's saying problem, problem, problem. You don't know what it is. If you've just started TRT, it is completely normal to feel overwhelmed and confused. There's a lot of new territory to cover, and there is a lot of conflicting information. I wrote TRT 101 so that you can have everything that you need to know in an instruction manual in one place that you can refer back to, that you can have all the questions answered before they even come up. TRT 101 is my best practice approach for TRT from start to finish, and it contains everything that you need to avoid all the challenges and pitfalls that I've seen come up in my clients over the last 5 years. You can check it out via the link below. When I see younger guys who've got brain injuries when they've got pregnenolone deficiencies, the main thing that you see pop up is anxiety and insomnia and being what I call wired and tired. It's like being full of beans in a bad way.
That's
It's like
right.
like the bad part of having too much caffeine. And the thing that I see, like when I reference this gentleman who I spoke about the other day, who I referred to yourself, is that he had all these symptoms of, low testosterone, which is low hormones at the age of 60. And the main thing that didn't improve was the brain fog and the ability to articulate, the ability to actually get the words out that you're wanting to articulate. And I always stutter on this point, ironically, but it's when you're actually trying to articulate what's on your mind, and when you're able to speak with good fluidity and speak well and confidently, and not stammer over your words or lose your tongue. And I think pregnenolone makes your brain work better. It's a very powerful neurosteroid, and it's very protective against cognitive decline. And it's also, like, as you mentioned before, insulin resistance is, when I said those 4 diseases of aging, they're all insulin resistance at foundation.
That's
Absolutely.
right.
And dementia is type 3 diabetes. So I think that when I look mechanistically, pregnenolone and DHEA are very important for energy metabolism in the brain, which you can cognitively feel, but it's also going to be the thing that's going to protect you when you get older. And that's what I think is very important, is people want to get to 70, 80 years old. Everyone's talking about longevity. It's like, but you want to actually be doing well when you get there. You don't want to spend the last 20 years of your life, not being able to clean up after yourself. You want to actually be sharp and present and functional. And that's what pregnenolone, DHEA, especially together, are going to be able to facilitate for you. It's just pregnenolone to the brakes, and DHEA is more like the accelerator.
Everyone, please listen to what Dave's saying. I wish they could make a reel on what he just said, which they will, I'm sure. In that, look, you take them now, you optimize them now for what it's going to do for you 30 years from now. Not the way it makes you feel now. Do not get caught up into only the feel-good effects. I'm not going to take it if I don't feel it. Understand that what you do now will have a profound effect on you 30 years from now if you will do it daily for the next 30 years. It's so hard to get people to understand that and do it. They'll start for a while, and then people get complacent and they just stop. And once again, they'll just start looking for an easy button somewhere, but there is not one. There is not one. But for me and you, taking hormones is just so easy. It's as easy as brushing our teeth. It's just as easy. So please, it is about prevention, and do not wait until you get symptoms of a deficiency. Do not wait until you get a disease or disorder to start treating it, because that's how we're trained in medicine. We're trained to treat you once you get the disease. You're trained to go to the doctor once you get sick of the disease. We're trying to prevent you getting that age-related disease. We're trying to prevent insulin resistance. We're trying to reverse insulin resistance. So please listen to everything that Dave just said. So while we touched on some mental aspects of pregnenolone and the others, that'll lead us into thyroid. So thyroid is probably the most controversial one of them all. It's the one that creates ire with the family physician or internist because it is poorly understood, just like testosterone has been for several decades. And I think what men need to understand out there is many men out there that get on testosterone and still have symptoms, fatigue, brain fog, lack of mental clarity, weight gain, inability to lose weight, even erectile dysfunction, things such as that. A lot of times those symptoms are from thyroid. So low-acting thyroid in a man looks just like low-acting testosterone in many areas. And that's why they don't get better when they just get testosterone in some instances, because the clinic is throwing testosterone, which is actually also a thyroid problem. So that's why, but what I found, Dave, in my practice is I used to teach about thyroid right off the bat, about optimizing levels in men. Understand that thyroid regulates temperature, metabolism, cerebral function, and energy levels. It protects you against cardiovascular disease, cognitive impairment, fatigue, weight gain, memory loss, decreases visceral body fat, and improves your lipids profiles. The better the levels, just like with testosterone, the better the benefits. So I used to preach to the men that all the wonderful benefits of having optimal levels of thyroid, just like having optimal levels of testosterone. They can always understand testosterone, but inevitably they would call back a month or two later. Many of them, like, why am I taking this thyroid again? I don't want to take it anymore. I just want to take my testosterone. Then they'll stop and they'll start feeling bad or whatever. And maybe they won't start feeling bad. But the point is, then their thyroid labs are not optimal anymore, because that's what hormone optimization is about, is maintaining optimal levels. And so what I have found that works recently best with men is men tend to typically do, most of them, not all of them. Some of them understand hormone optimization after 40. But what I found, Dave, is that it works best in them as far as them accepting it and understanding it. If I start it after I start testosterone and the other hormones, get everything optimal, give it time to work, and then if they have symptoms left over, still have persistent fatigue, brain fog, lack of then they'll start thyroid, and they tend to do much better when they know exactly the symptoms they're starting it for versus starting it and optimizing the levels and not waiting until you get symptoms of a deficiency. So if in a perfect world, if I went back to age 40, I would start all my hormones. Whether I had symptoms or not, I would start all my hormones. I maintain I had optimal levels. I would never want them to be anything but optimal. And and that's Neil Rizier's perfect world too. And so that would be our perfect world, but we don't live in that perfect world. So that's kind of my approach to thyroid. It's a vitally important hormone. The two feel-good hormones are testosterone and thyroid predominantly, and that those are the ones that have the greatest impact on how you feel, function, perform, and your overall health on a daily basis are those two. Those are the biggies. And so, Dave, you can tell us how you approach, consulting men on thyroid, but that's kind of the approach that I've taken after doing that for so long is I tend to get everything optimal first and then add thyroid. I kind of put it on deck for them unless they want to start it off bad. They're given the opportunity, as every man is, just like with testosterone. They can not do it, optimize it from the beginning, or just wait and start it later. There's no wrong answer for that man. Whatever his answer is his answer. Okay. So tell us how you approach that in your practice.
Okay. Yeah. So thyroid's a big one. Thyroid is also common in younger guys as well. Again, I don't know what it is. Sometimes it's Hashimoto's, which is autoimmune. I think there's also an endocrine disruption that plays into that too.
Military men especially bad. Oh, go ahead.
The thing that I've also found is it's really rampant in the UK. Maybe it's something to do with the pollution, weather, I don't know, but very rampant over there. So yeah, if you take a list, if we imagine a Venn diagram that crosses over in the middle and you've got low testosterone symptoms on the side and you've got thyroid symptoms on one side, they're all in the middle. They're the same. They are the same.
They are the same. Guys, if you understand that, they're the same.
They're the same. And this idea that if you have to have like cold extremities to be hypothyroid, that's nonsense.
That's true.
That's nonsense. I believe that maybe came from the fact that women run a little bit lower in temperature than men. So maybe that's the first symptom they notice, but no.
They always have to describe the extremes. The extreme of true hypothyroidism. We're not talking about subclinical hypothyroidism or men with suboptimal thyroid levels. We're talking about those true hypothyroid and hyperthyroid. So yeah, that's where that kind of comes from.
Yeah. So when it comes to the thyroid, and you've said this before, like when you draw a line in the sand, let's say hypothetically a free testosterone level of 50, and if you're still wanting to throw more testosterone at it, the chances are there's something else going on, and the chances are if it's clinical hypogonadism symptoms with optimal testosterone levels, it's thyroid, but that should have already been checked and taken care of. But a lot of the time it's not when they come to people like us because it gets overlooked all the time.
And they're afraid of it. They're afraid of it. That's right.
They're afraid of it and they don't know how to do it. And there are so many men walking around with either undiagnosed hypothyroidism or damn hypothyroidism and they're on T4 monotherapy. T4 monotherapy is like Testagel or pellets. It's crap. It's almost as good as nothing. The thing that breaks my heart is when guys say, oh, I had my thyroid removed and now I'm on 100 micrograms of T4 and I'm obese. It's like, well, you didn't have much of a chance.
No.
So thyroid optimization gets a bad rap because a lot of the time people get put on T4 monotherapy, which is useless or it can make problems worse. And yes, there are outliers that do great with T4 monotherapy.
That's right.
But the vast majority of people need T3 and T4, and natural desiccated thyroid just works better. I used to think, and I was wrong, and I will eat my words on this, this is another one of those you can say I told you so moments because 100% true is T3, T4. If you have the equivalent dose of NDT as synthetic T3, T4, it doesn't work as well as the NDT does.
That's right.
1 in 10 people won't tolerate NDT for some weird reason, but the vast majority of people do much better on NDT. I've had guys be on the equivalent, like let's say a 2-grain equivalent dose of T3, T4, and they swap to NDT and it blows their levels through the roof. Like it's a much better medication. So yeah, when it comes to thyroid, I like to think of thyroid as putting the wind in the sails of TRT. Thyroid is responsible for your metabolism. It's your engine. I talk about thyroid being the furnace that sits in your torso. And when thyroid function is low, it's like when people go, oh, I've just got a slow metabolism. You've got hypothyroidism. Or when you see those, like I used to know people when I was young who would just eat everything and they'd stay stick thin. I've recently run their lab work and they've naturally got a TSH of like 0.4 and a free T3 above the reference range. They're just those outliers. So You want to have optimal thyroid function, one, because food is wonderful and being able to eat more nutritious food is wonderful for you.
Mhm.
The more good quality, emphasis on good quality, the more good quality food you put into your body, the more nutrients that you can assimilate and the more powerful of a vessel you can build. It's like basically it's like being a more powerful car and going faster. It feels better to be alive when you've got good thyroid function. When you're low in thyroid, everything feels like too much effort, and the body constantly has to kick into adrenal hormones, cortisol and adrenaline, to get things done, like a dirty backup fuel source, because your body has to kick into fight or flight just to do basic day-to-day stuff. Thyroid is not amphetamine, like you said before. Thyroid's not like you're sitting down and being like, oh, I just want to go take on the world now.
Right.
But what people do notice when they put the thyroid in is they go, oh, now doing that cardio and abs at the end of my workout, it doesn't feel like a chore anymore. I kind of look forward to it. Now I kind of want to go to the gym for as long as I can rather than leave as early as possible. Now, all of a sudden, when I go for a walk, it doesn't feel, I'm not always checking to make sure I've been going for long enough. I just want to keep going because it feels good to move and be alive.
That's right.
And I like to say to people that, again, going back to the car thing, if you were a car that had an engine that's too small for the vehicle, which is what hypothyroidism is, you can still go down to the shops to get milk and bread. You can still get from A to B, but it's going to feel terrible to drive.
Right.
But if you've got a sports car with a souped up engine and it feels really good to drive it, not only is that experience going to be better, but you're more likely going to go for a joyride. So in your spare time, you're more likely going to go and exercise and get off the couch and actually go and do the things that you need to do to achieve your goals. And that's what I love about thyroid so much. It's that it's giving people the energy that they need to put the testosterone and the other hormones to use.
That's right.
And the other thing that we haven't spoken about this before. I recently did a lecture on maybe this term exists. I coined it subclinical Hashimoto's. And this is where people have got elevated Hashimoto's enzymes that are not above range, but they've got symptoms of hypothyroidism, even when their thyroid panel looks okay.
Mhm.
And these people benefit immensely. And these are often the guys who are they're incomplete from their TRT alone, and they're 25, 26 years old, and they benefit from just boosting the thyroid up. Even if it's only 30 to 60 milligrams of NDT,
Mhm.
they do wonderfully with it. So it's so important that people, even if you're just going into this and you're wanting to look at your hormones, get a comprehensive thyroid panel and look at your symptoms, and don't overlook it and go, oh, I've got a little bit of Hashimoto's now, but let's wait until I put on another 20 kilos of body fat and become insulin resistant before I fix the hypothyroidism. It's nonsense. As we said before, the wheels are going to fly off, so service it now. A lot of it just comes back to living how we're supposed to be living, and when we're out of alignment with how the human body is meant to work, we're going to get negative feedback. And if that goes on for too long, we get things like cancer, we get things like cardiovascular disease, we get things like dementia, because that's your body saying, hey, you didn't listen to all these wake-up calls I gave you, and now I'm going to take you out.
You've put out a decent